Well, hey guys, happy fall and welcome to Hope Rescue Podcast. I'm Kimberly and this is my pumpkin buddy, Tim.
You're the pumpkin.
I know
I'm
you can't see
something
me
else.
if you're just listening, but I'm wearing a bright orange sweater and it is 100 degrees outside, but I figure if I wear it, fall will come.
Actually, it's not 100 degrees.
I'm
It's
just
nice
kidding.
and cool, but
Yeah.
it was a nice try.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm all about fall. We were
Yeah.
just talking, Sophie and I, we got the right candle and we have pumpkin waffle candle.
I smell
Well,
it. It
it's
smells.
delicious.
It smells like
I
fall
know.
in here.
If we could just breathe that in and then like not actually eat the pumpkin waffles, that would be winning.
I think
Through the
eating the
fall.
pumpkin waffles would be right.
I know,
to
but
do.
wouldn't that be cool if you could get the same satisfaction and not the calories?
Yeah, that'd be great.
So we're
thanks.
in our marriage series we're doing. We're calling it Tim and Kim's Fun Tips for Marriage. I change the name every week.
fun tips. We've got 30 of them. We
Yeah,
got we
that's a
came
lot.
up with
Don't
30
overwhelm
tips.
our people.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
Well, hey,
Yeah.
marriage isn't easy.
No, it's not. And doggone it, we've been married 13 years and
Yes.
30. We've got 30 for you, and that's it. Sorry.
Hey, we do want you to share reviews that you might give to us.
Yeah.
And we have one. In fact, I think you're going to read that for us.
So when you do, we'll give you a shout out and give us your username because we want to give you props. So this is from Philosophical Assumptions, Tim.
Yes.
You're already loving this person, aren't you?
I like the name
They're
of that
so
person.
deep. They have many leather-bound books, I can
Yeah,
tell.
I'm sure they're very
They
smart.
say, these two share a lot of wisdom and practical solutions to issues we are all facing. I always feel refreshed and inspired to be a better husband and father. Aw. After listening to these messages, thank you for sharing your lives, faith, and hearts with us.
Oh,
I
that's
love that.
very nice,
And
yeah.
that it was from a gentleman. Thank you
Obviously.
so much for that. We actually really do appreciate
That
you
was
taking the
rude.
time.
Was
What'd
that
you
rude? to
say?
say?
You
I
made a
said,
jerk?
That's from a guy. And I go, yeah, obviously. Well, the reason I said that is because as you're reading this, I thought it was a woman.
Oh, you
for
yeah,
some
but
reason.
very
But it was a guy,
thoughtful,
a
and-
husband.
and we're just
Yeah.
grateful. So thanks for
Yeah,
taking the
so-
time. And we hope you'll still write us, even though my husband just totally mocked you.
No, I think I mocked you, but
Oh, yeah.
I want to
Actually, you
apologize for that.
did.
Yeah,
You
it's-
did.
That's something you
So-
should not do in marriage. That's another tip. It's
So,
just off the top of my head.
Mr. Philosophical
Don't be a rude
Assumptions,
dude.
will you please write in and correct my husband for
Yeah.
slamming me?
Yeah, I didn't
Thank
mean
you.
it to be that way,
Well,
and
that's
I want to
okay.
apologize in front of all of our friends, both of our friends.
So we get to dive in today on our episode. This one's going to be, I feel like we should cue in like Boys to Men.
Yeah.
Like, I'll make love to you.
Oh, wow. Okay,
if
well,
you want
we are
me
going to talk about
to.
sex
We're
because
talking
that's
about
part of marriage.
sex.
All right.
Yep.
The first thing, and this is number 4 on our top tips for marriage.
Wait, number 4.
Number 4
Yes.
is fall in love intentionally over and over in marriage.
Yes.
So don't just, you fall in love when you meet and you court each other. Boy, that's old school.
I'm
Oh, they
going
were
to
courting.
men's courses
I
today.
wouldn't court you.
Forthwith.
Yeah. So courting. That's my generation.
I
That's what he
know.
said.
I know.
Anyway, I think I
I've
asked
come
your
to call.
father
Yes.
if I could court you,
did,
to marriage.
And I love that.
And I used the word court.
Very sweet.
Anyway, whatever
Yeah.
that means. I just wanted to date her. And so you fall in love
Mm-hmm.
and then just kind of, you don't forget about it, but you think that's all you need to do.
Yeah.
You need to fall in love regularly. You need to date. You
I
need
love
to
what
focus
you-
on the heart of marriage.
I love this word, though. You said intentionally
Yeah.
over and over it. Because
Yeah.
I think falling in love comes from intention, right?
Right,
It's
right.
intentional
Well, it's
behavior.
it's a choice. You know, I think people, falling in love, I actually don't even agree with this concept of falling
Mm-hmm.
in love. This falling in love, like it happened to you. You have to
You're
choose.
hurting my heart.
No, babe, you're a romantic. So
No, when
listen.
we first met, you were head over heels.
Well,
You
I did.
fell.
I
You fought-
immediately-
you stumbled. You
I
dove
so-
in
I
to
did.
the big
But I didn't lose
pothole
my
of
mind.
love.
I didn't lose my mind. But I
fell.
I fell in
You
love.
did lose your
I want
mind.
to take back everything I just said. No, you of course you're attracted and you feel that love and that desire
Yeah.
in many different ways
Mm-hmm.
and then but the thing about it is you have to cultivate that because once you get married things change.
Yeah.
And so our 4th tip is date regularly, focus on the heart of marriage,
Mm-hmm.
focus on how to continually intentionally cultivate
Yes.
love for each other. And we're going to get into some more of that. But the number 5 is make sex about intimacy, not about erotic fulfillment. And not maybe I should say not exclusively about erotic fulfillment.
Right.
Because certainly there is eroticism in marriage. I don't think of that as a negative word. I think
No.
that is a good thing.
It wasn't our idea. Take it up with the Lord.
Yeah, he's the one who made it up. So, but the thing about this point is the greatest benefit of sexual intimacy is intimacy.
It is
Sexual
intimacy.
experience is intimacy.
Being fully known, fully loved,
Yeah.
and unconditionally.
And I do think that that's more intuitive for women than it is for men. I think men somewhat compartmentalize that. And I think women, the big driver is that intimacy. But I can tell you this, guys, if you think that it's about eroticism, you're probably going to stumble a lot because it really, your driver is intimacy. That's the way God made you. He wants you to want your Eve. And he created Eve to surround and protect him. And it wasn't just this relationship that's, kind of compartmentalized. This is something that's cultivated over and over and over again. And sexual intimacy is what you were made for. And so if you don't cultivate that in your marriage, you're going to probably, unfortunately, try to find it somewhere else. So it's very important to go cultivate that.
That's
and it
important.
does.
It takes two. So.
And it takes conversation. I think you
course.
need to talk about it.
And therapy sometimes, because
Yes.
honestly, everybody comes to marriage with their own frame of reference of what that should look like, or sometimes their own trauma. You look at the numbers of the day and age we live in with sexual abuse, and for men and women, frankly. So there is so many challenges around that.
Right.
And we've sent a lot of people into professional therapy. We're not therapists or counselors, but we've seen the benefit of that, kind of diving in and becoming free from some of those things that keep you from being completely intimate with your spouse.
Yeah, there are those barriers. I mean,
Yes.
if everything is normal and healthy, that will be a natural flow. Intimacy will.
Like
but
Adam and Eve in the garden, they were running around butt naked and loving life.
yeah,
I'm just
no
saying,
shame,
it wasn't no shame. Yeah.
They were what kind of naked?
Butt naked.
Is it butt or buck?
So butt.
Is it buck?
B-U-T-T.
No, I think it's buck
Shiny, white, hiney butt.
naked. No, I think it's buck naked.
No, babe.
You know what I'm
Maybe.
going to Google after we get. Actually,
don't
that might
Google it.
result.
You'll get
yeah,
some
get
weird
some
porn.
stuff. All right, forget that. I won't Google it. Somebody will tell me.
Yes.
All right, and then along that same lines is number 6: plan sex in a way that is comfortable for both of you. First of all, people go, "Wait a minute, plan sex? Is it?" Here's the myth. The myth is that when you get married, sex will always be spontaneous. You'll just be overcome with desire, kind of like on your honeymoon, you know? And yet when you get into reality of marriage, you actually have to plan it. You got kids,
Yep.
you've got work
Yeah.
the next morning, you've got all kinds of things that there's nothing wrong with planning sex. In fact, the anticipation might be a really good thing.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to that point you made earlier about intentional love. So this is a way of showing intention. You're making time on your calendar to have that date. Now, that being said, I do think that there needs to be room for spontaneity, and when and if at all possible. But even if that doesn't happen because of your schedules, you know that this is something to look forward to, and just setting aside that time, you're prioritizing each other, and it really is creates that space in your life for intimacy.
Yeah, and one of the ways to clue it in is start playing Barry White. When you walk
Bow,
in,
chicka,
yeah,
wow,
the candles
wow.
are lit and
Yes.
Barry White's playing. I know what's going on.
I know.
Yeah.
Gracie's like, oh my gosh, our daughter, she's down the hall from us. If she hears like anything that sounds like jazz, or depends on the night, guys. I'm not going to
Yeah.
clue you in case you're hanging out at our house. But I'm just saying it's become painfully uncomfortable for her. And I always try to tell her it was the TV. Duh. But no, she knows if there's anything with a saxophone, it's going down.
Yes. saxophone.
going
Okay.
down.
So that's 4, 5, and 6. Let's
Yes.
move on before we get crazy
Okay.
about that. Share number 7 with us.
Let your spouse have interests that don't include you. Now, this is not related to sex.
Yeah, we're moving. Yeah.
This
That's
is
quite a
disclaimer.
tough translation.
Let's
transition.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Let your spouse have
So,
interests that don't include you. We're coming out of
I don't know
sex.
if I'm going to recover.
We wrote this down. Oh my gosh. No, we're good. We're good. We're going to push through. This is the beauty of podcasts. Sometimes you don't think about the order that you wrote things down. These are random.
Oh,
These
man,
are random,
babe.
but
this
that's
is your
perfect.
fault. You wrote it this way. I'm
I
not taking
did.
ownership.
Well, we moved things
You're
around.
asking
This
me
was
to give you room and time for interests that don't include me. Fill
No.
in the blank.
Yeah. No. Okay, let's switch gears here. So,
Okay.
what does that mean? That means that there are things that your husband or your wife wants to do
That's
that
what she
don't
said.
include you. Yeah. Don't. So,
Okay.
yeah. That is pretty good. All right.
Okay.
We're keeping
right.
this podcast. We're not editing anything.
Okay,
So
let's get back on
so
track.
let's think about this. Like, let's say your husband likes to go hang out with the guys, or your wife wants to go
Yes.
out girls' night.
important.
It is important,
Yeah.
and it should never obviously include people of the opposite sex. That's not what that's about.
Not ideal. Oh, well,
Yeah.
if it's a work function, clearly you can't help that if you're hanging out with, like, if there's like a work dinner or whatever.
Yeah, but it needs
the
to be-
interest thing needs to be, if you have hobbies or whatever,
Yeah.
do it blue on blue, pink on pink. That's what we call it.
Yeah,
So that
that's
you're in a
good.
situation where you can have intimacy with friends that are girls if you're a girl, and guys with a guy. It's good. Like, even our sons, the one of our sons that is married, he has his guys' night. He's with his brothers, and his wife Cassie has a girls' night, and it's usually with her sisters and her best friends. And I just think that's so healthy.
I think it is actually.
line
It makes us
dancing together
as
and-
parents. I watch the kids hanging out together as couples.
Yeah.
And then I see Ronnie and our other sons
Yeah.
hanging out together, and then the girls will hang out. All of our daughters and daughter-in-law, and that is super
favorite.
fulfilling to
Yeah.
me. And I think if you want your marriage to be strong, you're going to have to let your spouse have some interests that don't include you. Now, if all the interests are outside of your relationship,
There's a
for
problem.
example, there's a problem. I know a couple years ago that I knew that he was really trying to avoid spending time with his wife. And so he worked on projects constantly. He'd get home from work. He was an engineer. He'd get home. He'd eat a meal, usually made it himself. And then he would get in his car and go to a piece of property that he owned. And he'd work in his shop until 10, 11 o'clock at night,
so sad.
come home, go to bed. They never had
Yeah.
much of a relationship.
He was trying to escape.
He was trying to escape, and I do know that about
Yeah.
them. But there are good times. It needs to be a balance, though. So these are kind of random order. Sorry about that
Yeah,
weird
they
order.
are.
But what's the next one? Number 8.
Well, did we finish that?
Yeah,
that
well,
one
do you have some more
So
you
I
wanted
was
to
just
say
going to
about
say,
that?
what are some practical applications to that, to outside interests?
Well, I think
I'm thinking for you and I, yours has been. I mean, you love to read and study. That actually is a joy for you, a passion for you.
Yeah.
Like, that's not something we do together. We
No.
do that separately. One of the things we love to do together, though, is go to the gym together. So that's been fun.
Well, and it's been great. We'll talk about this later on,
Yeah.
but is that just doing this podcast together has been
Really
really
helpful. Mm-hmm.
really helpful. And we speak at churches sometimes
Yeah.
together,
Yeah.
and we definitely rely on each other for input on messages. I'll run a message by you, and you run a message by me.
Yep.
But there are things that we like to do that are separate, and there's nothing wrong with that. Here's probably the most important thing is, number one, don't make it all the time.
Yes.
Number two, allow for it on a regular basis. So maybe once a week, something like that. Make sure that you're doing things together, but allow for that. So
Yeah. And the next one, number 8, is listen to what hurts your marriage.
Yeah, that's
Listen to your spouse about things that hurt the marriage.
well. I think this is what I think about. Listen to what hurts your marriage. I have learned being married to you that every woman is different. So there are things that hurt you that might not hurt another woman.
For sure, yeah.
And there are things that hurt me that might not hurt another man. So you need to listen, and it goes along with our first point, the three most important things. Listen, listen, listen.
Yes.
But when I say listen to what hurts, or when we said that, I think our idea was that we are talking about, what are the things that are doing damage to your relationship? There have been things that you've said to me that you wanted me to stop doing or change, and I've made those changes.
Yeah.
And there are other things that I probably still need to work on. There are things that you have said to me, things that you've done that you've changed as well to make
Yeah.
our marriage better.
Yep.
So I think it's hard for us sometimes. We go, well, our marriage is fine. You ask the average person that isn't in a crisis, and they'll go, yeah, our marriage is great.
Yeah.
Well, really get down into it. This is what happens in counseling. When people get in counseling, marital counseling, their marriage usually gets worse before it gets better.
That's
Because
true.
they uncover
Unpack
some
it.
of the problems. And when you uncover these problems, you go, wait a minute, I didn't know you felt that
Yeah.
way.
Yep.
And, that
It's painful but productive.
yeah, it is.
Yes.
So listen to what hurts your marriage. The next one, number 9, is this. When your spouse does something with the same goal as you, but uses a different process, leave him or her alone. I do this all the time. You do
And
it
I
too.
do it to you.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah, because my way would never be your way,
Like,
and your way's not my way.
Gracie, I was doing something the other day. I was trying to get something untangled or something, and I'm doing it for Gracie, and she's trying to get her hand. You guys are listening by audio. You can't see this, but she literally put her hand against my hand trying to get it done.
Gracie
We've
was?
done it. Yeah, Gracie.
Yeah.
And we do that to each other
Yeah.
as well. Like, let me do it. And, whether it's tech, Gracie will watch me try and do something with my phone, and she'll
Instagram
go, Dad,
or-
let me just
Let me just
do it.
Let me
Okay?
do it for you.
But
Yeah.
when you're married and you have the same goal, and that's the beauty when you have the
Yeah.
same goal. You have the same goal, but use a different process.
Exactly.
Like we study differently.
Right.
We
Oh.
speak differently.
Oh my gosh. And if you saw our notes for our messages, you do, first of all, everything on your iPad. Mine looks like a coloring book. It's a notebook and I am highlighted,
Yeah.
circled, colored, pictures. Like I'm a very visual learner and it helps me with my memory.
Yeah.
But we're so opposite.
Yeah, you will mark on it. But then what I like is to get, and I don't get to always do this when I go to churches, but I like to have my keynote presentation, and I control it with my iPad to my computer. The computer goes to the large screens in the auditorium, a place that I preach on a regular basis, Torrey Pines Church. And they actually set it up. Our good friend Andy Call set that all up, got it to where it works. I don't know how it works.
Yeah.
And I don't
But
really
it
want to know,
works.
but he
Yeah.
knew. And he said, all you got to do is hook this up like this.
Yeah.
You got this adapter and it works, and I can control the slides and I can see my notes. So that's one way of doing it.
Yeah.
Not a lot of pastors do it that way.
Yeah.
But we have the same goal to communicate the word of God and communicate maybe even that same message,
Yeah.
but with a different process.
Right.
If you worry about process over goals, you'll hurt your marriage.
solid.
And I
That's a
think that's an
solid
important
word
thing.
there.
So we have one more I want to hit before, and it's number 10.
Oh, this is the one
It's
that
kind of
makes everybody
whiplash. We're changing gears here.
Yeah. So number 10 is get a budget. Probably should start with this.
Yeah.
Love your spouse, use your money is a quote. Don't love your money and use your spouse.
Yeah, I think the quote is, love people, use money. Don't use people and love money. And you think about that, we're called to love people, love others as ourselves. We were never called to love money.
Yeah.
In fact, the love of money is the root of every evil. Money itself is not the root of evil.
Yeah.
But this budget is deadly
Yeah.
because and that's why I recommend that people, if you go to a church that offers Financial Peace University, I really
So
encourage
good.
that
Yeah.
because it will help you set a budget
Yes.
where God is a priority in your giving and generosity, but you also are getting out of debt.
Yes.
And for those that are in debt, and you set a budget around, it creates restrictions. So here's how you do it. We could spend a lot of time about this, but creating a budget that's going to help your marriage. Before I get into that, let me just say 2 main reasons why people divorce is money and sex.
And sex, yeah.
And neither one of those will make your marriage great. Having a lot of money and having a lot of sex are not going to make your marriage great. But somehow those 2 areas, when they are dysfunctional,
Yeah.
will ruin a marriage. So you need to work on those. And we've talked about some of these in our top 10, which we have 30, by the way. Got a lot to go.
a long way
But
to go.
anyway, getting that budget is so important because it's that one-time fight
Yeah.
or argument
Well,
or
it shouldn't
conflict.
even be that. It should
Yeah, but
be
it
like
is.
a coming. It's a reasoning together
Yeah.
over what's reasonable and not reasonable with a budget.
Yeah.
2 separate individuals that have been used to managing or maybe not
Yeah.
managing their own money.
Well, yeah, you get the.
Yeah.
So I think I can't remember the exact words that Dave Ramsey talks about, but you got the nerd who likes the budget, and then you've
the
got on the other.
consumer.
No, not the consumer, but the
Spender?
no, a laissez-faire. What's that word? Carefree, that kind of person.
Are
I
you
can't remember what it
describing
was.
me right now?
A little bit. We are different. I'm a
Yeah.
saver.
Yes.
I'm an investor. You're a consumer.
I'm a contributor to society.
Yes, you are. You're helping the economy. But it's not that. And the thing about it is, you don't waste money. You're frugal, but you think more in terms of consumption. I think more in terms of
Saving.
future investment. But once you get that down, you get that figured out, it's going to help your marriage greatly. So that once that's dealt with, you can't get mad at the budget like you could at each other. You go,
Sure.
why are we saying
We
no to this?
decided on this
'Cause
together.
This budget, yeah.
Yeah.
So I really would encourage people to get a budget. Now, here's the ones that we've given: fall in love intentionally, make sex about intimacy, not about erotic fulfillment, plan sex in a way that's comfortable for both of you. That myth is that it will always be spontaneous.
Right, and
It's
happen
great if
magically.
it can be. Let your spouse have interests that don't include you. That has nothing to
Not
do with
connected
sex, by
to
the way,
number 6,
with
yeah.
that weird transition we went into. Listen to what hurts your marriage. When your spouse does something with the same goals and uses different process, leave her alone or leave him alone.
Yeah.
And then our last one is get a budget.
Yep.
And so those are some, and maybe we could put these on our website so that people could have these.
Yeah.
We'll have our producer do that. And we'll keep going on these next
Yeah.
time. So these are good tips that
Yeah,
with
and
our.
if you have questions, send them in too, because we could always incorporate that.
Yeah, sure can. So we'll get into, on our next episode, we'll get into some more of those. We hope that your marriage will be what God meant it to be, and that is totally fulfilling. God bless you. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.